This question, what about those that have never heard of Jesus, really goes right to the core of who God is because it challenges his moral character. If Jesus really is the only way, that's what he says anyway, and then he condemns those that haven't heard of him, that is really a black mark against who he is. So, as we answer this question, let me remind you that we're going to be answering it to people that are not followers of Jesus. This is true of all our answers in bite-sized answers, because if we were talking to Christians, we would be given verse and chapter and verse and a great theological foundation, but we're not doing that. We're working with those that are not followers of Jesus, so we're answering the questions more logically and more emotionally because that's where they are in their thinking, and we want to create an opportunity to share the gospel with them. And by the way, this one is one of the greatest questions of all to be able to do that. All right, the first thing I would say, if somebody asked me that, I would just say, is there a group you're thinking of that hasn't heard? I mean, most of the time people just say this, so they're not even actually thinking of anybody at all. It's just an assumption. So just establish that people really aren't thinking of anybody. Secondly, I'd ask the question, what do you think qualifies as hearing? See, here in America, we're 21st century. We hear through internet, we hear through television, we hear through radio, we read. So our understanding, we can read the Bible, we can read articles. So people are thinking that if there's an environment in the world where they don't have that, well, then they can't possibly hear. But the fallacy in this is all those things I just talked about are relatively new. For centuries and centuries and centuries, the way people learned was through communication, word of mouth. Within 30 years after Jesus' death and resurrection, the whole world knew the message of Jesus, and it came through word of mouth. And that's still happening today. In every corner of the world, there are Christians who are talking. And every now and then, I get to hear some wonderful stories about people that have come to Christ just that way. All right, then here's the third thing I'd say. The God of the Bible will make sure everyone has a chance to hear. I don't know how he does this, but he's going to make sure everybody has a chance to hear. Now, notice I said chance. It doesn't say they will hear, because if they turn down the chance, they may never hear. Just like if there was some big financial guru coming to town and he could tell you how to be financially successful and never be in debt. And you say, not going to do it. I'm smart enough. I'm going on my own. And 30 years later, you're in deep trouble. And you say, man, I never heard how to do it. That is true. But the reason you never heard is because you thought you were good enough, so you resisted the message. So about this time, if I were talking to somebody, obviously we want to turn it to the gospel. And this is so great. I would say something like this. Have you ever heard what the central message of Christianity is? I know you may have been to church and been kind of confusing, but if you'd like to, I'd love to just communicate so you can see what the central message of the Bible is about God and Jesus. And then you're on your way, if they give you permission, you're on your way, and you get to lay out something that's a good chance they've never, ever heard before. And if God is drawing them and you're assisting him in communication and the two come together, there's a chance that somebody might just cross that line of faith and become a follower of Jesus. And again, like we said so many times, as you're driving away or as you're laying your head down on the pillow at night, you're just smiling because you say it doesn't get any better than this to work with an assist in the God who loves the world and seeing somebody's life changed forever.